to the Salt Lake City Planning Commission meeting for April 27th. It is 5:30, so I will call the meeting to order. Let me get my cheat sheet out here. So we're going to begin tonight with approval for the minutes, but since this is your first meeting, Levi, I won't call on you for a vote. So can I have a motion to approve last meeting's minutes?
I'll move we approve the meeting minutes from last meeting.
Who seconded? Brenda, thank you. Okay, I have a motion from Maureen and a second from Brenda. Let's go ahead and take a vote. Amy?
Yes.
Andra? John?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Brenda?
Yes.
And Rick? All right, that motion passes unanimously. Thanks, everyone. The next item on the agenda is the report of the chair. I do not have anything. Vice Chair?
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Okay, who's my acting director tonight, John or... I can't see who it is.
Third
Amy. Sorry.
We don't have any items on the director's report tonight.
Okay.
I was just going to mention as a reminder for those who are new, just to make sure you speak clearly into the microphone because it is recorded so that we can make sure we can get our minutes. So for those who are new and not, and it also helps for the audience to be able to hear well too. So.
Yeah, and Amy, would you like to introduce our new planning commissioner?
We could let them introduce themselves.
Levi, would you like to introduce yourself to everyone, please? And yeah, there you go.
Is it on now? Yes. Okay, perfect. I'm Levi de Oliveira. I've been in Glendale. I represent District 2. I've owned a home there for the last 13 years. And that's about it. I'm happy to be here.
Welcome, Levi. You do need to actually even get closer.
Oh, even closer?
Yeah,
Okay.
there you go.
So, yeah.
Just to the point where you feel very uncomfortable. That's exactly where you should be speaking.
Let's close it up, okay?
So it gets on the recording for the record. Welcome, Levi. If you have questions at any time, always feel free to reach out to staff, but you can also email me, and I'm happy to tell you who you should talk to. But you feel free to reach out to anybody, okay? And if you're like me, you will have a lot of questions in the beginning as we move forward. Okay, we will move on to the public hearing portion of our agenda. The first item up is a conditional use permit for an ADU at approximately 617 East Driggs Avenue. This will be case number PLN PCM 2022-00091. And our planner tonight is Riley. Riley, is this your first meeting?
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank
We
you.
have a lot of newbies tonight, so welcome.
Just one moment. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Okay, the item that I have is a conditional use permit for an accessory dwelling unit at 617 East Driggs Avenue. The ADU will be in an existing detached garage that will be converted. Staff recommends approval of the conditional use permit. Here's a vicinity map of the subject property. It is located in the Sugar House neighborhood in the R17000 single-family residential zone. The site is developed with an existing single-family home with a detached accessory structure where the proposed ADU will be. All neighboring uses are single-family residential, and the ADU will be at least 20 feet from any neighboring structure. Here's the site plan that has been provided by the applicant. This is the single-family residential home, and this is the detached garage towards the rear of the property. The current conditions of the property in regards to lot coverage and setbacks are existing. The proposed ADU and existing garage is approximately 592 square feet. Parking for the residents of the home will be provided on the concrete pad shown here, in between the home and the accessory structure. Parking for the ADU will be provided on street. Right here is shown a parking space on Driggs Avenue, which is a public street where it is permitted. The property is also located within a quarter mile of a transit stop. The main entrance of the ADU will be accessed from this existing alleyway along the eastern property line. Right here, this is the front door of the proposed ADU. Here are the floor plans that have been provided by the applicant. This shows the existing floor plan of the garage, and this shows the proposed floor plan of the proposed ADU. The existing garage is a single-story structure and will remain that way once converted into the ADU. The building currently is just under 13 feet in height. Here are the elevations that have been provided by the applicant. This is the single-family home on the property. Oops, sorry. And this is the proposed parking area that was shown on the site plan. And then this is the ADU, obviously, once it's already been converted. There will be windows on all facades of the ADU. Here are some pictures that I took of the site showing the existing conditions. This is a picture taken from the street in front of the home. This is the front of the single-family home. Oh, I'm sorry about that. And then this is the alley along the eastern property line. This is how the ADU will be accessed. Sorry about that. And then this is the garage that is existing that will be converted into the ADU. So based on staff review, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with the mouse. So based on staff review, the proposed ADU appears to meet all city code requirements and the intent of the ADU ordinance, and staff recommends approval. And that's what I have, and I can take any questions or comments.
Thank you. Commissioners, any question for staff?
Yeah, Riley, maybe this is throwing one a little too bad at you on your first day, but what makes this a redo versus just a new construction? How because if it's you know, are we keeping the actual exterior of the garage, or okay, all right, thank you.
Riley may not know this offhand, but there is an ordinance, remind me, Amy, about the percentage of a building. If you can do so much remodeling, if you keep a percentage and then you maintain whatever existing, maybe nonconformity or whatever. What is that percentage?
It's really quite high. You can remove up to 75% of a structure, and it's not counted as a demolition. Up to that 75. Anything above that would be considered a demolition.
So above 75% is considered a demo. Okay, that's what I wanted to double check.
Are there any other property types besides ADUs that can front on an alley? Can a regular single-family home front on an alley, or just an ADU?
I'm not sure. That might be a question that Amy could answer better.
Okay.
So you can have a use fronting an alley if they were to go through like a planned development process, since they wouldn't have frontage on a public street. So yes, potentially, but they would have to go through a process. But we do allow ADUs to front on an alley.
Do the ADUs have to follow are there any rules? That was one of the concerns of the neighbors, is that how close is this door going to be to the street and stuff like that, the alley, things like that. Will this ADU be required to follow whatever rules there are for other residences that front on an alley?
Yeah, so I think Riley's analysis is in the zoning standards attachment.
You might need to speak closer, Amy.
Sorry, her analysis related to those specific ADU standards is in attachment D. So there are specific standards in terms of how close it can be to another primary residence on a property, setbacks, those types of things. It is an existing legal non-conforming structure, so there may be some existing non-conformances that can remain.
Is there anything specific for an ADU that fronts on a alley instead of a regular street? No?
So the setback isn't as great, and they can have windows instead of
right.
not having windows. They have an exception if there's an alley on those.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Riley. We have the applicant, Tom Baracco. Did I say your last name correctly?
Yeah, Baracco's fine.
Okay, if you'll just state it in the microphone for the record,
Tom
and then
Baracco.
you'll have up to 10 minutes, but you don't need to take all that time.
I don't really have anything. I think we've covered it.
Okay.
Can I bring up something
Absolutely.
about the trolley?
No.
Okay.
No. If you have something to talk about your ADU.
No, I
absolutely.
don't have anything else. I'm sorry.
Okay. Then, commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant at this time? Okay, Mr. Rocco, hold tight. We'll open the public comment period. If anything comes up during that, I'll give you a moment afterward to address that. So just hang tight.
Oh,
And
do I go back to my seat?
no, you can just stay there. We'll go ahead and open the public comment period for this agenda item. Is there anybody here that wishes to speak? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public comment period, and you can now go back to your seat,
Well,
Mr.
thank you.
Rocco. It's a matter of musical chairs. So, commissioners, if you have any final questions, you can go ahead and address them now, or I'm open for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion.
Please.
Based on the analysis and findings in the staff report, the information presented, and the input received during the public hearing, I move that the Planning Commission approve the conditional use for the ADU petition PLN PCM 2022-00091.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion from Andra and a second from Maureen. I'll go ahead and take a vote. John?
Yes.
Brenda?
Yes.
Rick? Yes. Amy?
Yes.
Levi? Maureen?
Yes.
And Andra?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, Mr. Bracco. You can work with staff, and good luck on your build. All right, let's move on to the next agenda item. This is going to be 465 South Main Street, the apartment tower design review, and that is case number PLN PCM 2021-00586. And the planner tonight is Lex, that is joining us.
I love the folders, Aubrey. Very well organized. I feel like there should have been a present in there for me. All right. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Welcome to all the new people. I haven't met most of you, but I'm Lex Strawber. I'm a senior planner with the planning division. And what you have before you tonight is a request for additional mid-block building height located at approximately 465 South Main Street. And just to get you oriented here, this is the site. This is the new district attorney's office. This is the courthouse track station. This is 500 South, and this is Main Street. And we are, as a staff, recommending that you approve this with conditions. The overall building height is proposed to be 179 feet, 217 units. Ground floor uses include leasing, office, retail, lobby, and a parking porte cochere. Upper floor uses are residential. Exterior materials include aluminum metal panels, glass fiber reinforced concrete panels, aluminum metal panel fins, glass and storefront glazing. They're proposing 126 parking stalls, which meets code. I wish I had had this building height example for you, just to demonstrate what we're talking about. Let's imagine for a moment that this is 500 South. This here is Main Street, so the track station would be in this area here. In the D1, the height at a building corner has to be at least 100 feet. It can go up to 375 feet, and they have proposed that for 179. But once you hit 165 feet heading towards mid-block, the code limits building height to 100 feet unless they go through this design review process before you to request additional height. So their height would be 179 feet for the entire building, which would exceed, boy, Riley was right. The mount's touchy. The 179 feet for the entire length of that facade of the building, or actually the whole building. Does that make sense to everyone? Is that a good example? All right. Here are a couple slides of just the property itself. This is taken from Fifth South. You can see the track station over here on Main. This is looking north. You got the Ken Garf building over here. There's one more shot of that. And one additional shot from Main. As I mentioned, we recommend approval based on our analysis and findings in the staff report. We would recommend that you approve this request subject to 2 conditions. I just want to add that I have not heard any public comment on this. I have not received anything from recognized organizations. I don't know if there are people here this evening to speak to this, but I just wanted to let you know that. And that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer those for you.
Thanks, Lex. Commissioners, any questions for staff?
Why do we have this rule?
You know what? That's a really good question. And I know that Kelsey in our office is working on building height in the downtown area. This is where we want tall buildings to contribute to our skyline.
Yes.
I absolutely agree with you, Brenda, but I really can't answer that question. I'm hoping that through that text amendment that Kelsey's working on, that might be changed. And maybe these guys can give some insight.
Yeah, we're currently working with a consulting group to actually do a study height through all of downtown, so D1, D2, D3, D4, and Gateway mixed use, to kind of find appropriate heights for the block. This is this has been in the code since '95, that heights on the corners, not in the middle. However, I don't think any project's ever been rejected for height in the mid-block that I'm aware of. So, I think that it's kind of one of those ideas, if you're going to be in the mid-block, we want to make sure, what are you doing to contribute to that portion of the block and the skyline? So we're forcing it through design review.
Could it be that it's an issue with daylighting and views?
Oh yeah, especially like the effects of shadowing and things like that, which having a downtown sky map where we're actually looking block by block, we're probably able to solve that and achieve that, as opposed to 30, 40 years ago, where it's easier just to say, no, just put tall buildings on the corner, and then we can kind of avoid those shadowing or wind impacts.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Lex.
Thank you.
It looks like we have the applicant Rob Merrick and Larry Curtis. Do you have a presentation that needs the laptop?
I'm just loading it up.
Okay, perfect. So once you sit down, if you'd state your name for the record, and then when you get your presentation up, you'll have up to 10 minutes.
Larry Curtis. Rob Merrick with FFK Architects. There he is.
Go ahead, floor's yours.
So a lot of this is what you have in your package to where's next on that? Oh. There we go. Are you just scrolling? Oh, yeah. We're jumping. So I think you've seen in your packets, we're trying to revitalize this area and actually bringing the CBD down further south, which is part of that. So we're going to be doing the materials that are requested of us that are in the CBD north of us. Our street frontage is all primarily glass. We're 90% on the bottom and on Main, and just under that 87 on the sides. So we're trying to make sure it's very vibrant corner and active corner as they see activity inside. We've got retail on this northwest corner that's in the lower left, and then our leasing office and entryway on the other side. This is our standard floor. So we go up through here, our interior parking system. We've got amenities on the 5th floor with the pool amenity space. Or upper floor. So exterior wise, again, this shows the height. This is our Main Street facade. So we have that 179 feet. It jumps up to 181 just at that mechanical unit screen that's there on the northwest corner. And then the materials that Lex described earlier. North facade. Again, we are unique. We butt up against the DA office to the east of us and the DA parking area, and then we have a parking lot across. So as far as our extra height, currently we won't be casting shadows on anybody else really from where they are, but who's to say in the future? And then just renderings more. This is Fifth South elevation. This is from just on the other side of the track station on Main. And looking on the other side, the DA office is what's on your lower right. Is our entry corner. So looking across the corner from Fifth South, looking up towards Main Street, you can see how open that is. This is our entrance to the main space. We have a secondary entrance that goes into our second set of elevators, depending on where the tenants live. And then our northwest corner is, at this point, it's a retail space. We're hoping for a restaurant or a coffee shop. So we've got a lot of activity. Again, this kind of primarily shows the openness or the glass on that facade. Just keep tabbing through those. This is with the trees. We kind of pulled the trees off of this one so you could see the building better, but this is primarily what it will be, is this one that we just showed. That's really all we've got to present. And like I said, this was majority of the stuff that was already in your packet, but if you guys have any questions for us?
Okay, thank you. So I have a question. In the staff report, it indicated you're going to do retail all along Main Street. Are you just putting it on that one corner now?
So we have our leasing office, and then so we've kind of split that. Originally, our leasing office was more on that corner as well. What we deemed that to be our main entry for the building, and then the retail portion of it is just that northwest corner.
So then, so the way it was described in the packet was that Fifth South would be your leasing office and kind of that portion, and then Main Street would be commercial retail along with your parking entrance.
Yeah.
So, so go through then what we're seeing, what we're going to see on Main Street and then Fifth South, since it's different from what was in the staff report.
So I'll take this. So the retail is actually going to be this portion from right about here all the way across the facade, and then there's our garage entry, and then this whole portion is part of the leasing office, but what we're doing there is providing a link to the track station, because in order to make it leasable and in order for our tenants to really make it a home, we wanted to create something that invited co-working. So it's a open space that's both for our tenants and for people who aren't our tenants to really take part in the building and make it integral. Along Fifth South, there's really not going to be a lot of parking opportunities, and for retail along that front, it's not as viable, and so we push the retail over to where the mid-block crossing is to really activate that corner rather than leave it dead.
Because I think that along Fifth South, you still have retail options. You don't necessarily need parking. You're right across from a truck stop.
No, that's
So-
true, but we do have to put a leasing office and a tenant entry to really create something that is a home. I mean, our goal there was to really take as little of the facade for our leasing office, and if you look in the plan, it's really, 15, 20% of the facade.
So are you going to do
capture.
anything to activate Fifth South on the street?
Well, that's what we're hoping, that the rest of our leasing space and the tenant entrance for that can do as well. But we're not trying to do any other further retail on that side, if that's what you're asking.
I think that's a real disappointment on my end, because you are right next to a truck stop, and that's a draw for not only commercial retail but also your tenants. And Yeah, I'm not too thrilled about
Do-
that. Go ahead, Brenda.
Do you have a, I'm sorry, I might have missed it, because I wasn't paying that, I was trying to look at your plans in our packet. Do you have a first floor plan revision that you showed us, or would you show us? Yes, a first floor plan. Okay. Okay, so,
Just trying to make it bigger. So this area here over there on the northwest
That's
corner,
the
so in your
retail.
lower left, is our retail.
okay.
And like I
how
said,
many
that
squ-
seems
and how
to
many
have-
square feet is that?
About 2,700 square feet.
Okay, and that's all the retail you have on the ground floor?
Yes. Other than our leasing office, which is retail for the business itself. But yes.
And where's the leasing office?
Leasing office.
In the upper left, upper right, I'm sorry.
Okay, and the lobby's attached to that, I assume?
Yes.
Okay. And what is that space sort of in the middle there?
Here? So
Yeah, that.
this is actually our parking entry. And so this will actually feel, architecturally, this space will be designed to match our leasing office and really kind of carry that whole design over. But the vehicles will be brought in here, and then they get transferred into a mechanical parking system. So it'll be self-valeted.
So there's extra space in there that's wider than a standard?
It's required in
I'm
order, so
really-
what we...
I know that it might be required, I'm just asking you what it is.
It's just for vehicular circulation so that we can get pedestrians and vehicles separated from each other, and you can get the vehicles in and out
So
without
it's a
queuing
big-
on Main
It's a
Street.
big covered room.
Basically, an interior porte cochere like you'd have on a hotel or whatever, as you'd come up
Right, and
to
then,
that space to
and
queue.
then the cars go into a stacking system.
They go into these, so if you see these three rooms, so the wider one is our ADA access. They get into that, get out, fold their mirrors in, come out, scan their fob, and walk away, and then basically a robot comes and picks up
So
their car and
that's
parks
a
it.
stacking space. That's not actually the transfer space.
No,
Is
that's
the
a
transfer.
You're talking this upper lobby?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the queuing space. Yeah, we needed to pull cars off of Main. We don't want to create a traffic jam, and so we had to create a space for vehicles to queue before going into the transfer station.
And it has to be that wide because of the way the transfer station's designed.
Yes.
Okay. And what happens, so you have a garage door that's how wide?
20 feet.
Okay, and then on either side of that is what? I mean, you've got space there. Is that glass?
It's all
Is that-
glass.
It's
The
all-
whole
yeah.
first level is glass.
It's meant to be just an extension of the lobby, just like you drove your car into the lobby space. So it's not dressed down, it'll still be as nice as everything else with tile and everything as far as the finishes.
And how big is your leasing space?
It is, yeah, it's about 1,800 square feet, I think. So it's less than the retail that we've got. So it's just that upper corner.
And how deep is your retail space now? How deep is it?
I think it's 40 feet is what we kept as a minimum.
Okay, because it's 25 feet in the original drawing.
So the
which is
grids are
pretty-
12 and a
which
half
is
feet. So it's
pretty,
like, it's close to 40 feet depth, and then we're
Okay.
100 and something across.
Okay, so it's deeper and shorter than the other space, than the earlier space that you were showing us, the
Yeah,
plan.
I think we had that
phase one or
pulled up
whatever.
farther, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
There have been some discussions about making that stretch of Main Street pedestrian only and not allowing vehicles. Would having your parking garage right there preclude us changing that street to being pedestrian and cyclists only?
At least that portion, yeah, because they wouldn't be able to access any other way, at least. But the DA office has that space next to us, and apparently they need that as a means of escape as well, so I don't know if that would be allowed for that.
And on top of that, transportation did review this, and that was not mentioned, so
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, if you guys,
One more.
go ahead, John.
Is this the final design for the ground floor? Or is there going to be anything else added to that?
The floor plans itself?
No, the actual facade. Is it just going to be just generic glass over the whole thing? Or is it going to have any kind of articulation and,
Yeah,
weight,
if you look
space
back
finding?
if you look back at the elevations that we showed, it's like a sawtooth. Well, yeah, go to the renderings because that shows, this still looks flat. But if we go into that, there's a lot of ins and outs, so it's kind of a sawtooth facade. It's not meant to be just a flat space. We're trying to articulate that to not have a flat facade. in it.
Yeah, I like that very much. Why is the ground floor so bland?
We're just trying to keep it open and
I mean, there's
transparent
no
as possible.
articulation at all on the ground floor. It's
we've
just
pulled
glass.
We've pulled it back, but yeah, we're trying to keep it as open or as visible as we can.
This site is extremely constrained, and so we at the leasing office, we pushed the building in and tried to get as much articulation along the facade as we can, but the whole goal behind the D1 zone is to really push the building as far against the street as we can.
Yeah, I'm all for that. It's a pretty, like, if you're walking down this street, it's just going to be monotonous glass the whole way and not really broken up in any way. And then the hardscape, I don't know if that's a requirement, but it feels pretty monotonous. So I just wanted to know if there was any plans to kind of add a little bit
We
more
haven't done,
greenery or
as far as
anything
the
else.
landscape, we'll be meeting whatever the codes are. I know some of our original drawings, concepts had showed benches out there and everybody frowned on that. So we're trying to keep it open and we'll meet whatever's needed, but we're planning on having it more hardscape than not, just to not have the maintenance or invite people to try and camp out in front of our building.
And the hardscape is dictated by the city.
Yeah, I just wanted to see if this was the final version or if there was going to be more, so.
Amy, can I ask a question as well?
Go ahead.
I was just going to make a comment
You
about.
have to get closer to your microphone.
Yes, there we go. I think everyone can hear me now. 217 units with 126 parking stalls.
We're at 150 parking stalls, so I'm not sure on that, but it's still, so we had, in that the current code only wants us to have 0.5, which would be half of that, so 100 and something in there, and we've used the exception where we have the proximity to the track station and fitness center on site that we can increase that. But that's just the max that we're able to provide in that space that we have.
They meet the parking standard.
Amy,
This probably isn't a question for the owners.
you have to get into your microphone.
This is probably a question for you or or staff instead of the owners.
Okay.
Want me to
Let's
say
wait
that?
till after the public comment period then. Okay. All right, if you guys just want to hang tight, we will open the public comment period. Is there anyone here tonight that wishes to speak on this agenda item? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public comment period and bring it back to the commissioners for a final discussion and a vote. Go ahead, Amy.
So when we vote on a design review, my feeling is that we're voting on the design that was presented to us.
Yeah, a design review is very tricky because your average person, which would be me, thinks that design means how it looks, and it's really more about how it's functioning, how the site is designed to function, and not so much the little bits of how it looks.
Well, I'm saying, well, like, to your point that you expected to see more retail or something else on Fifth, and now there's nothing, or there's
Yeah.
a leasing office. How much changes can?
I think that is because the standards don't necessarily go into that relationship of, and I think this is my personal opinion on this one. I think allowing like leasing offices and amenities for the tenants to be the code allows that to be considered retail commercial, which I think is not at all, should not have been that way, but that's what the code says. So in that regard, they meet the standards in that, but it's, I would like to see more actual public type retail, especially if you're across the street from a truck stop. That's the whole kind of point of revitalizing that you don't need to have the kind of parking requirements or the car capacity. And we're not going to create a vital landscape here or streetscape if we just continue to have amenities for tenants and like a restaurant. So, I mean, that's my personal view, and I wish that we were seeing a better representation of true retail on both, because we have some really good streets here, but the code allows tenant amenities to be considered retail, which I think is wrong, but
But the staff is in charge of making sure that what the eventual plans are that get approved for a building permit hold closely enough to the design review that we're approving.
yeah, Lex can answer that, but.
Absolutely. And in fact, I sent these guys an email today saying this is not a conceptual development plan, that what is approved is what we expect to see on the building permit application and plans.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, if this, what we're seeing tonight is different than what I saw in the Dropbox earlier today,
Yeah.
like, what is the cutoff?
What is different that you're seeing from these plans?
The whole first floor plan is
The whole
different.
first floor, the whole ground
The
floor.
whole first floor facade is different. The whole pedestrian level facade is different than it was. So, for example, we're not seeing those, what appear to be, I don't know if this is the leasing office facade.
This is leasing.
This is the corner.
Okay.
Basically, the fourth south side of the corner.
So those piers, those
Or behind the
columns,
glass.
okay,
But
are
that's in the
not,
plans.
shown in the plans that we're looking at, I don't think. So that's the leasing office. They are shown, but they're shown in front of the glass, not behind the glass.
Well,
the
let me, I want to address that. That's
Yeah.
important.
Yes, it is
I
very
don't
important.
review their presentation prior
Okay.
to this meeting.
Yeah.
So if you were noticing differences in presentation versus what is in that Dropbox that I have put in the Dropbox as the plans associated with this project,
Right.
the plans associated with this project in your Dropbox are the plans that will dictate the development.
Well, they have made major changes on the first floor. They have changed the garage location, the entrance of the garage location. They've changed the depth and length of the retail. They have changed where the retail is in the block. So it is a major change.
I think Amy Burrows brings up a good point in that often there seems to be changes from the presentation we get and to what we reviewed in the Dropbox. And I've always considered that somewhat a matter of timing.
Sometimes they're
when
minor.
reports go in the Dropbox. And I know that there's still opportunities for this to change due to other code review, like fire
And those are
and
not,
things like that.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
No. Thank you, Lex. And I just, so I think this is a good discussion because there's nothing that seems to be a hard line for these things. There's a little bit of fluidity for them, but I do think it does present a question for the commission, Lex, on like, what are we actually reviewing?
Yeah, what
And
are we
does
really
it
approving?
meet your valuation?
My mistake, I put the wrong plans in the Dropbox. That's what I'm seeing.
Okay.
And so what you're seeing is a plan set from May 5th of 2021, and those are not the correct plans.
So these are the correct plans.
Those are correct plans.
So,
And I apologize, I don't know how
so
that
Mr.
happened.
Merrick and Mr. Curtis, that's part of why we're like, well, this
I
is
can-
just different.
I can understand that, because we did, at the first of the year, revise things, and that's why we kind of got tabled to this point.
And I saw the letter that Curtis was addressed to Curtis about the changes, or that Curtis wrote. And I was like, okay, there are the changes. Where are the plans for the changes?
So then,
You know,
Lex,
so, okay.
is your evaluation to the standards to these updated plans?
Yes.
Not to the plans in
Yeah.
this?
Sorry,
in the
that's an
report?
old set of plans. I don't know how I got those in the Dropbox, but that's current.
Okay. So this, but your evaluation to what complies is related to this?
Yes.
The
Okay.
sad thing is I prefer the old plans more. The retail makes more sense than the old plans.
Yeah, I like the retail and the whole plan
And you
better.
could easily shift the lobby to where the retail is and move the retail to the corner. So it would have been a better plan, I think.
Yeah, I'm not, I mean, I'm with you, Amy. I don't think we should count, lobby space and leasing office as retail stuff. But I'm also know that in the life and the history of a building that might last 25 or 50 or 75 or 100 years, those spaces will become what they will become. It's not, they have to be a leasing office forever. They could be a lot of things over a period of time. So I'm more concerned with making sure we get the building right to begin with than the actual uses, because the uses will shift.
I'm just thinking about my lifetime, like what I want to see happen in my lifetime.
You're much younger than me, so
Not that much
I only
younger.
think
So
about, I only
I-
think about destiny at this point.
Madam Chair,
Right.
All right.
I'm actually, I'm going to agree with John on the articulation issue. The facade that we're seeing that has the Fifth South facade, at least in these plans, had some piers that were in front of the glass.
The glass actually just butts right with, it's in front
It's in
of the
line with
columns.
the-
Yeah, so the columns are just set behind the glass, and it's a continuous sheet of glass.
But so it's a continuous, so this is even more, this is not a sense of articulation for the pedestrian. And I think that I would object on the grounds of this to approving this project's design review because it is not pedestrian sensitive and friendly to the pedestrian.
So, Mr. Merrick and Mr. Curtis, what are your feelings about making some modifications to the articulation? Is there something I want to know? Is there something that you can work out here that is good for both, or then there may be a motion to not approve it? So,
Yeah, I'd like to address that in two different circumstances. So the facade is actually broken up in a number of spaces. So first of all, to address the idea of where the retail is, we went round and round and round and where to put that. We spent a lot of time sitting at the track station and just watching how people circulate around the site. This is a very, very active mid-block crossing. Anybody getting off the track stop, 90% of them are going to the mid-block and then crossing the street. And so what we provided as you come across that street is actually this image. And we wanted this portion of the facade to look special and to be completely different than the leasing portion. So the leasing portion is actually set back about, was it a foot? It's set back about a foot, and it's glass, and it's got some articulated metal that comes around and wraps just in front of where the parking system is. And then over here, that sawtooth concrete comes down through the system and becomes the corner. In the original design, we had a garage door and no activity at the mid-block crossing, which was an absolute miss when it comes to the pedestrians. Because as you're coming across that mid-block crossing, first thing you see is our coffee shop.
Okay, so this is, I'm sorry, Commissioners, forgive me. So this is the rendering of what you're intending now for this corner. And this has a pier coming down, a couple of piers coming down, defining that retail space.
Yes, ma'am.
And
Yeah.
and the glass is pushed back a foot?
Roughly,
yeah.
Okay. And there's some kind of other articulation there?
Yeah, so the concrete actually, the whole building on this side of the facade is sawtoothed, and to give
Oh, boy.
a texture to that facade, and then as you step around the corner, it becomes glass.
That's good. I mean, that's what we're looking for, is some kind of sense of that it's not just this big, flat glass
We don't
along
want
the
that
whole
any more than you.
frontage there.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I guess the question would be like, so there, I see 3 retail signs is what it looks like, these little kind of popsicle sticks coming off the building. Is that right? There's 3 signs?
Yes, sir.
And then I guess how do we differentiate these businesses architecturally? Is there a way that you're going to allow them to make any changes to that? What are your plans for wayfinding between the businesses?
It'll be treated just like any other retail business along Main Street or State Street. that space could be one tenant, it could
could
be
be-
3 tenants.
right.
It's really up to the tenant improvement and how they treat the space, but the facade itself, 99% of tenants don't ever touch that.
Right.
But what about the signage?
Yeah, that's more my concern, is where does the signage go other than those little tiny, like, if I'm looking straight at the building, how do I know what your business is?
Well, we're trying to be less obtrusive. Again, that I don't think we've got to that side as far as the design parameters
Well, that
of our
was part of my
signage.
earlier question, was what are you going to do, like, to finish this off? Because, like, wayfinding is a huge part of this, and then creating space for identification and understanding, like, that adds texture to a street walk. Just blank glass doesn't do that. So having something there that allows you to attach signage, are you going to attach it to your stair-stepping facade and drill into your concrete, or are you going to have an element at the top of the window that allows people to be able to create the wayfinding? Like that, those are my
Or,
questions.
you know, neon signs, or, I mean, you know.
And that's conditioned. I mean, typically you approve these things and then somebody, a assigned person comes in and pulls permits for signage.
Right, but it should be curated. There should be a place for that. It shouldn't just be tacked on haphazardly, and that's what I'm missing here. Is there's some of these little, fin signs hanging out, but I don't feel like that's enough space. Like, how do you identify your business?
And how do you
Yeah.
identify it from across the street at the track station?
And that helps you guys out too, because if people don't know what's there, they're not going to go, and then it'll be vacant, and then you're just going to have empty retail space. So those are the key things for me when you're designing this ground floor, is wayfinding, and then engagement with the pedestrian. Get people excited to go into your business, not just a glass box.
No, that's a really good point, and that's something we will work with the city on as we proceed to make sure that these spaces are defined in such a way.
Yeah.
I do note that it is one of the 2 recommendations in the staff report that signage be delegated, subject to the Salt Lake City Lighting Master Plan, so
Right, but it's not the signage
understand
itself,
what you're
it's the curation of the signage and the, how do you wayfind? That's more of what I'm talking about, and I think you're close. I think it's just the glass feels like a placeholder is what I'm getting at, and I think there could be more there that allows you to curate that better for the business owner, so that they're successful, and then you're successful because you keep getting your rent. So those are just comments, but.
Brenda, do you feel better about the articulation? Okay, thank you then.
Do you guys feel weird about voting on it without having seen do you guys feel weird about voting about it without having seen the actual approved things? No.
Well, it depends on, we'll see how it plays out. If somebody's willing to make a motion, and then if they don't, you don't support it,
I would be happy to make a motion.
okay?
I want to preface my motion by saying I'm extraordinarily disappointed that transportation signed off on basically damming that to be a permanent auto throughfare, but conditional on transportation having made that decision. It seems like this approves all standards. So based on the analysis and findings in the staff report that the standards for design review have been substantially met, testimony in the proposal presented, I move that the Planning Commission approve the request for design review located at approximately 465 South Main Street for a new mixed-use residential and commercial project subject to 2 conditions as noted in the staff report dated 4/27/2022.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion from Andra and a second from Maureen. We'll go ahead and take a vote on this, see where it lands. Amy?
I didn't want to vote first.
Okay, well then I'll come back. All right, John?
Yes.
Rick? No. Amy? Sorry, you're up. Okay, I'll let her think a little more. Maureen?
Yes.
Andra?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Brenda?
I'm unhappy that we have the wrong documents because it seems like, as a matter of record, we should have the right documents when we're voting on a. So I'm going to vote no.
Amy?
Can I say yes, no, or abstain?
Correct. But one of those, not all 3.
Right. I think we need more discussion to convince me. So I'm going to abstain.
Okay. All right, with that, the motion passes with 4 yeses, 1 abstention, and 2 noes. Okay.
And just, these plans, because they represent the public, will be in the public record as well. I mean, I certainly understand the concern, and we strive to have these accurate all the time. Mistakes do happen, so we apologize for that for sure.
Well, and
But they will be on the record, so.
It's not the applicant's fault either, so
No.
I don't want to,
I take
I don't
full
want to punish
responsibility for
them.
that. I apologize.
That's okay. Thanks,
Thank
Lex. Okay, moving on to the next agenda item. Thank you, everyone, for that. This is the Rose Park Lane Master Plan and Zoning Map Amendments. We have a Master Plan Amendment case number PLN PCM 2020-00152, and then a Zoning Map Amendment, which will be case number PLN PCM 2020-00153. And the planner tonight is Amanda.
Here we go. And just to start, it is a 2020 application. It was put on hold because of COVID, so they are the right numbers. This is a master plan and zoning map amendments for 1902, 1932, 1944, and 1954 North Rose Park Lane. The petition was initiated by the Public Lands Department. It's a request to amend the Rose Park Small Area Plan future land use map from low-density residential to open space, which would then facilitate a rezone request from R1 7,000 single-family residential to open space as well. The property consists of 4 lots and is approximately 3.6 acres when combined. The properties are owned by Salt Lake City, and then the purpose behind the amendments is to consolidate the parcels and incorporate them into the Regional Athletics Center, which is located to the north in the open space area. They are vacant, other than there is one existing single-family home on 1932 North Rose Park Lane, and that's this third parcel. Staff is recommending that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council. Standards of review, there's not specific standards for master plan amendments, but the standards for zoning map amendments are below and in the staff report. Considerations, master plan policies. So the Rose Park Small Area Plans update to the airport and Jordan River Master Plan. The land use is designated as low density residential, and then the master plan needs to be amended prior to rezoning the property. Recreational and open space land uses make up the largest portion of the land in this northern study area, and the low density residential uses were intended to be accessory to agricultural uses that were originally along Rose Park Lane. Plan Salt Lake calls for enhancing existing parks and recreational facilities, allowing for modifications to enhance usability and promote more activity. And the plan states that new growth should be directed towards areas that have the potential to be people-oriented. And you can see when I show pictures of this site, it is not very pedestrian-friendly. It lacks infrastructure, sidewalks, so it's not, as it is now, not people-oriented. Compatibility with existing properties. So, yep, as I mentioned before, 3 of the 4 properties are vacant. There's an existing single-family home that has frontage on Rose Park Lane. These 4 properties are the only properties in this area that are zoned residential, but not a part of the subdivision that you can see. And they're the only properties with frontage along Rose Park Lane. Every other home is turned inward. If subdivided under the R1 5000 zone, you could technically develop 22 separate lots, not counting public infrastructure, that would measure 7,000 square feet in size. The properties to the
To the south and the east are all R1 7000 single family. The property to the north is the Regional Athletics Center, which is zoned open space. And then you have the interstate and manufacturing zones to the west. A quick zoning comparison. I think the main thing to take away from this is that if it was rezoned to open space, they do have a landscape buffer, especially, or when abutting a single family zoning district. It includes additional landscaping, and then depending on the height of a building, the setbacks increase. So for the maximum height of the building can be 35 feet on lots that are 4 acres or less, but for each foot of height in excess of 20 feet, the required yard increases by per foot basis. And then housing loss mitigation. So the existing property is vacant. It has been for a long time, and the applicant intends to demo it, which is supported by residents. So I was asked to touch on housing loss mitigation, which you'll see with a lot of these rezones. So when is it triggered? It's any application of a demolition permit that, if issued, would result in the loss of one or more residential units in a residential zone. Any petition for a conditional use permit to authorize or expand vehicle parking in a residential or mixed-use zone, or any petition for a zoning change that would permit a non-residential use of land. So in this case, it is triggered by the petition for the zoning change that would permit non-residential use of land. And then there's 3 mitigation options. So you can do replacement housing, like for like. You can pay a fee based on the difference between the housing value and the replacement costs, or you can pay a flat mitigation fee. The applicant's proposing option B. When they took the replacement costs, that they exceed the market value of the existing single-family home, so there is no mitigation fee required for this specific property. Site photos, 1 to 4 is looking north to south. You can see the existing home, and the rest of the parcels are vacant. And then single-family homes to the east and the south. Some more site photos. Lacks infrastructure, which would need to be provided if it is redeveloped in the future. So you can see there's a little bit of sidewalk, and then the sidewalk starts when you reach the Regional Athletics Center. Okay, so based on the information in the staff report, planning staff recommends that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for the proposed master plan amendment, PLN PCM 2020-00152, and also to forward a positive recommendation for the zoning map amendment, which is PLM PCM 2020-00153. And then I just also want to say I added a couple comments to the Dropbox. The main comment was a resident, and then also the community council wanted to know if other zones were considered with this application, and they were not. The original intent was to rezone open space, which would be consistent with the open space designation to the with the property to the north. I'm happy to take any comments.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. It seems that Parks and Public Lands would be in the business of zoning to open space, so that makes sense why they want that zone.
Yes.
Any questions from commissioners for staff at this point?
Can you go back to that page where you talk about the building heights and so on, and the requirements of the R1 7000 zone? Are you saying that the open space requirements, if it's rezoned to open space, that it will be sort of open season, anything can be built, or height-wise, you know?
No, the allowable height is taller. Maximum height in the R1 7000 is 28 feet. And then the maximum height for lots 4 acres or less, which this is 35 feet. So it does allow additional.
On open space, okay.
In the open space, yeah, if they
Okay.
do redevelop, which was the original intent, and they're still doing research on what's feasible for the property, but over 25 feet, that setback, that landscape buffer has to increase foot by foot.
So the setbacks are smaller for an open space, they're like 15 feet or 10 feet
Yeah, so.
versus 25 feet and so forth.
Right.
Okay,
yep, 10.
I just wanted some clarity on that. Okay. What is the, I guess I'm not familiar with the building that's the regional athletic complex. What's in that? Is it a building or is it just playing fields?
There's playing fields. I don't believe there's not a building because of.
I think there's just like a bathroom,
Yeah, and I think that's
a couple
due
structures
to,
and a pavilion, but that's it.
water.
So whatever would go on this site would then complement that in
Yeah,
some way?
it would be an extension.
There
Okay.
are some buildings associated with the regional complex. And there's a motorcycle, motocross track in that complex. The area where this is closer to some fairly large open play fields that look like soccer fields to me. I went by there the other day. And so there are buildings associated with that complex that are, really this property is more closely associated to the residential neighborhood than it is to that recreational complex. It's separated by some distance. As you look at the photograph of the property, the overhead, that point at the north end of it is pointing directly at where the regional complex kind of abuts. That's the most border that it shares with the regional complex is that little point.
Okay, let's, any other questions for staff? Okay, is Michaela Respicchio Evans here? There you go, I butchered that, I'm sure. Please come up and state your name for the record, and then let us know what your position is with Parks and Public Lands.
Hello, my name is Michaela Respicio Evans, and I am a planner with the Salt Lake City Public Lands Department.
Hello, I'm Chris Laughlin, the Regional Athletic Complex Program Manager.
All right, if you want to just kind of touch upon what your plans are, what you're considering, et cetera, just give us an overview of kind of how you feel this will fit into the regional athletic complex. That would be great.
Yeah, so I think I'll just start off by saying that these lands were acquired several years ago.
You
I
might need
believe,
to
right?
speak closer to your microphone. 'Cause I
What
can't
year
hear.
were these lands acquired?
We acquired the two, 1902 and 1932, back in 2019. Parks had already previously owned the two parcels north of those.
Yeah, so with the idea of acquiring the two northern properties, there was discussion with City Council when that went through with the budget amendment as use for building an indoor recreation facility that would complement the regional athletic complex. I think that was truly the idea. However, that hasn't been ruled out, as was mentioned before. There still needs to be a feasibility study as well as significant public engagement. So while we've discussed the idea of an indoor facility, there's been no idea that's been ruled out at this point. So it could end up being a 3.6 acre park, a dog park, or just anything of that sort, and we really won't know that until we have the public engagement in hand. So we just want to emphasize at this point that right now we just want to make sure that it's zoned open space so that there's some long-term protection associated with that land, and then we'll move forward with thinking about what the actual future of that land looks like.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I will remind commissioners that both of these are zoning amendments or a rezone, and so we will be giving a recommendation to the City Council, and they are the ultimate deciders on this. So the petition before us is really not what could potentially go there, even though that was in the report, but mostly like, is the zoning appropriate for this spot? Did you have anything else you wanted to say, or does commissioners have any questions for these two? Okay, hang tight.
Okay.
As I open the public comment period, is there anyone here that wishes to speak on this item? Please go ahead and you're up to the lectern there. State your name for the record, and then you'll have 2 minutes.
Hello, my name is Rhonda Devereaux, and I'm the owner and operator of Happy Horse Ranch, located at 2575 North Rose Park Lane. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to express my views on the proposed rezone of the 4 properties on Rose Park Lane. I'd like to just give you a little bit of history from my perspective. I bought my property back in 2000. The land that's now known as RAC was a big hayfield, and the farmers used to do flood irrigation. We had thousands of birds migrating through that area for years and years. When RAC became an idea and a proposal, it was sold as our kids need a place to play soccer. Our kids need a place to play baseball. We don't have enough facilities. At the time, my kids were in athletics. They were in junior high and high school, and it was true. It was really difficult to get places for them to practice. The parks were full. It was hard to get a reservation. There was conflicting ideas for the property that is now known as the RAC, as there was a fraction of people that wanted it to become a nature center. It was a great area to be a nature center because it's right along the Jordan River, and with the flood irrigation, it was a huge flyway with birds that were migrating. Well, the battle for the nature center versus the soccer fields was lost to the soccer field, or won to the soccer fields, and they put forward a bond that we voted on as citizens of Salt Lake because our kids needed a place to play soccer. That bond passed, and then that facility became a pay-to-play facility. It has nothing to do with the kids in the neighborhood that need a place to play. The entrances and exits of the RAC, when it was initially designed, were supposed to be on and off Redwood Road to minimize the congestion in the neighborhood. And the entrances are not, they're right on Rose Park Lane.
That is time.
I think I'm supposed to get 5 minutes because
You get 2.
West Point.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, and this is new to me, so.
Hey, Amanda, I can take, she's representing the West Point Community Council this evening.
Oh, see, I wasn't aware of that, so I apologize.
Okay.
You're at 2:30, so you have half of your time remaining. Go ahead.
Thank you. To minimize the traffic, the entrances and exits were designed to be on and off Redwood Road, which is not the case. And it's also my understanding that they had to drill into the aquifer in order to get water that was clean enough to water all those fields. And that's just something to consider when you're developing an area like that. Now they're asking to rezone the properties, some of which they acquired after RAC has already been in fruition. Well, all the property that RAC has not been developed. There are still lots of space on that property that hasn't been developed, and yet they're wanting to develop another piece of land. The neighborhood is sort of in uproar because none of this benefits the neighborhood. We have the traffic, we have the pollution, we have difficulty getting on and off the freeway. It's a total disaster driving up and down Rose Park Lane with the OHV Park, which is at the end of the street, operating at the same time RAC is operating because they all operate spring, summer, and fall. You can't get out of that intersection. There's an accident every week at the intersection. So the infrastructure needs to be taken care of before we invite more people to enjoy. And the neighborhood needs to be included in the recreational features that the RAC has to offer. We're asking that you do a 1-year stay on rezoning, get rid of the house that is a public nuisance. It's filled with varmints and it's destroying some of the neighbors' yards. It was promised 2 years ago at March 2020 West Point Community Council meeting that that was going to be demolished, and it's still standing. And it's my understanding at last conversation between Dorothy Owens and I believe it was Chris, that there wasn't funds to demolish the facility and do whatever mitigation is necessary in order to be approved. And that just cries foul for the neighborhood. The neighborhood deserves better than that. They deserve to be able to use the facilities, and they deserve to have the infrastructure in place before you expand. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I apologize for not realizing you were part of the community council. Do you want to just take a moment to respond to any of those things? I usually give the applicant
Absolutely. When the complex was conceived, it was about 2003.
1 second.
Yeah.
Thank you. And does anybody else wish to speak on this item? Okay, I'm going to officially close the public comment period. And now I'll bring it back to you to follow procedures. Thank you, Vice Chair. Go ahead. Sorry.
No problem. So yeah, when the complex was conceived back in 2003, there was about a 10-year lawsuit that prevented the complex from being built. Once it passed the litigation, and it was approved to be built in 2013, we broke ground, and they had to cut back significantly. It was supposed to be 120 acres, and it was cut back to about 90 acres. So there is still 30 acres on the north end to be developed, and you know, it comes down to funding and, you know, being able to develop that area. The city did want to have a road on that north end as well, and that's still the ideal, but it's just taking some time. Okay. It is a pay-to-play complex, and it is tough to open it up to the neighborhood and community because Salt Lake City doesn't have a recreation department to feed that programming into the complex. So it was built and conceived to be a youth sports tourism facility, and that's kind of what it is today. So as far as the parcels that we bought, it's still open to what the city wants to do with what Parks wants to do with that property, and we will do an extensive community engagement prior to building. So.
I will also add that the land that the RAC is currently on was purchased with land and water conservation funds, which limits what can be actually done on that land. So we actually can't construct an indoor recreation facility on the existing RAC land, which is why we're looking at this additional land for the potential. But again, that's not an idea that we've committed to in any way. I will also say that demolishing that house is a priority for public lands, and it's part of what brings us here today. I believe that the housing mitigation loss plan is part of the application before you, and we needed to have you guys review that before we could move forward with demolishing that land. So that is part of what we're talking to you guys about today.
Okay, thank you both. I'm going to bring it back to the commission. And just state that the request from the community council for a 1-year stay is not in our ability to do that. That is something the city council could decide on, and certainly the community council and any members of the public out there will have more opportunity to engage in this process as it moves forward to the city council, regardless of what our recommendation is. The next step will go to the city council, and that is something that they could do, but not something that we have the authority to instigate. So if we have any more discussion on this, now's the time where I'm open for a motion.
But Amy, we could forward a negative recommendation.
Yes.
Based on the
That's
things
what I said.
that we're hearing
We
here.
can, whatever our recommendation is, positive or negative, it will move on, and the city council then will decide, and it would be the city council's decision if they wanted to hold off for a year, as the community council had in their request. I was just stating that we do not have the authority to hold this for a year.
Right.
We're making a recommendation, and that will be up to the city council how they want to proceed. Levi? Good.
Something that was said that really struck a chord with me is that it was built with bond funds, and that the people in the neighborhood originally thought they would have access to these fields for free or maybe at a discount. Can you speak to that?
So it's tough for me to speak to that. I've been with the city since 2017, so I can definitely, go back and look at what it originated as and what it is today. I feel that it was purchased with residents' funding, so, and they did approve the bond, so,
Yeah.
I get that frustration on that side, so, but looking at all of the information going back, it looked like it was conceived to be a draw, to draw tournaments from out-of-state teams and kind of be that youth sports tourism.
There's definitely a lot of discussion we could have about the rack.
Yeah.
But I want to kind of pull us back and focus us on what the question is before us tonight, and is these parcels, is open space an appropriate zone for those, and what recommendation would we like to forward on to the city council? Andra.
Yeah, I guess it seems like the existing land use seems bad. I think we all agree that this is a bad use of land to have one vacant house on there. And can you just review again, you said there are some restrictions on what the zoning can be because
No, that's for the existing rack. They was purchased with certain funds that restricted, so a potential indoor field or a potential indoor space could not be built out on what is still open to develop.
Thank you
Yeah.
for clarifying that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess, my sense is something is better than this, but I don't have a strong view on what would be better, but we do have a specific proposal. I don't know that I'm trying to see if I'm seeing it the right way, but this is not good. The current use is bad.
Yeah, but it's not about the current use, it's about the current zoning. So the current zoning is R17000, which is the exact zoning of the neighborhood that completely surrounds this property. So, and Amanda, correct me if I'm wrong, did you say there were 22, if you built it out at R17, you would have 22 housing units? Oh, not counting streets.
Yeah, not counting, you could go into 22 7,000 square foot lots.
I see.
They would probably be small.
Without roads. Okay, that would not work. But, so what we're giving up is, let's just call it, say, 15 to 16 housing units on small lots that, could contribute to the neighborhood. Maybe could contribute to housing issues that we have. We've fought over far less than that in our meetings. So, I'm a little uneasy, actually, because this facility would necessarily, by the way it's designed, but by the way the roads are designed in this area already, turn its back on the neighborhood that's there. You literally could not, if you wanted to walk from a house in this neighborhood to that facility, you'd basically have to go all the way out to Rose Park Road.
So I just want to remind you, Brenda, that we're not voting on the facility because that may not even be what they do.
Exactly, that's true. But I don't know that there's a rush.
So if you want to make a motion for that, we do have two separate files for two separate motions. So we would need to handle one first, and then we go to the second one. If you're ready to make a motion, we can do that and vote on it.
This chart that lists the permitted and conditional uses that are in the open space zoning was super surprising to me. Doesn't mean if it's rezoned to open space, that does not mean it's going to be a field. It could be an indoor recreation facility. It could have daycare in it. There's like an adult daycare is allowed, is a conditional use or a permitted use if it's secondary to the initial use. There's a lot of things that could be there in open space that isn't just open space. So that was kind of surprising. So,
is anyone ready to make a motion? We can please start with the master plan amendment.
I'm going to do it.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, it's tiny. Thank you, thank you.
I have the biggest iPad.
Let's see.
Please speak into the microphone too. Yeah, you got it.
Based on the information in the staff report, the information presented, and the input received during the public hearing, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to approve PLN PCM 2020-00152.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion for the master plan amendment from Amy and a second on that from Maureen. Let's go ahead and take a vote. Andra?
Abstain?
John?
Yes.
Brenda? Maureen?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Levi?
No.
And Amy?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes with 4 yes, 1 abstention, and 2 noes. I'd be looking for a next motion for the Rose Park Lane rezone.
I'll do that one too.
Thank you.
Based on the information in the staff report, the information presented, and the input received during the public hearing, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to approve PLN PCM 2020-00153.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion from Amy for the rezone and a second from Maureen. Let's go ahead and take a vote. John?
Yes.
Levi?
No.
Maureen?
Yes.
Brenda?
No.
Rick? No. Andra?
Abstain?
And Amy?
Yes.
Okay, Paul, if I have 3 yes, 3 no, and 1 abstention, do I have to cast the vote?
Yes.
Okay, I vote yes. All right, that motion passes. That's my first tiebreaker. I'm glad it wasn't one that I was going to have heartburn over. So, the next step is to the City Council. So the Community Council will have more of an opportunity to engage in that process as well with you. But thank you for coming tonight. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to our last agenda item, and that is Coachman's Mixed Use Plan Development. This is case number PLN PCM 2021-00898, and we have Katja for this tonight. Yeah, just for anybody in the public, if you wish to speak, I've got a couple cards. You can fill out a card in the hallway, but I'll also take your raising hands later on. So.
Thank you for your patience. I'm just trying to start this slideshow from beginning. Okay. So this is a continuation of a plan development that was reviewed in December 15th, and it was tabled by the Planning Commission. The project request is actually to allow a maximum facade length on the north building to approximately 335 feet and allow an increase on the corner yard setback to approximately 23.5 feet. So the Planning Commission tabled this plan development with a request for the following: for clarification on the unit mix, to clarify vehicular access from Udot at State Street, and to consider additional changes to the facade to make it more pedestrian-friendly. Our recommendation is for approval with conditions, and I'll list the conditions later. So this is the site and the existing condition where there is a restaurant and office buildings that would be demolished. And also there's the Parley's Creek that runs through the property as an underpass concrete culvert. So these are the revisions that were done by the applicant. And so the revision consists of dividing the building, which originally the first request was for 550, approximately 550 feet long. Now, the request has divided the building into two 65 feet tall buildings, mixed use, and connect them with a sky bridge with 94 residential units, still with ground retail and underground parking structure. This is a rendering of the new revised drawing, and the main difference is that on the north building you have the parking structure on the second level, and on the south building you have residential, additional 2 residential levels. 2 additional residential levels. So the new proposed, like I said, is 94 units. The previous was 112. The big difference is that the applicant has included 3-bedroom units and is not asking for any studios. And so there is going to be a total of 16 3-bedroom units on, from both buildings. And this is a positive thing because with 2 and 3 bedrooms, there's more of a chance for families to occupy these buildings. Another thing that the Planning Commission asked was for the Udot access to be approved. However, Udot has looked at this project, has no objections, but will not give final approval until the Planning Commission approves the project. So as a solution, we are recommending that the Planning Commission approves this project with a condition that Udot will give that approval at the time of building permit. But the difference that, from the design that was proposed in December was that a second access to the project has been eliminated, and this is the access that was going to be, and it turns into a courtyard on the ground floor. Staff finds that the elimination of this vehicular access would improve the pedestrian experience, among other things. So the third item that the Planning Commission asked was to make this project more pedestrian-friendly. One of the main things that the revision has done is to split the 2 buildings to make the scale of this project more human. like, and also eliminating that access will make it more pedestrian friendly, more pedestrian accessible, and also the original request for modification on the setback on the corner yard here to 23.5 feet will make it a lot, a much better experience for the pedestrians. And I need to note right here that this sidewalk on 13th South, and this is the 13th South sidewalk, it is, the public right-of-way is about 5 feet wide, and so the 23.5 feet is a great improvement. Although one of the reasons is because of utilities, also not just because of pedestrian access. And then on the State Street, the right-of-way is approximately 11 feet wide. So it's not as narrow as the 13th South, but it is 11 feet wide, and there will be room for some park strip with trees. So the other improvements, is also the bridge that will be, it's not necessarily an improvement, but it is set back enough that it's not going to be readily visible from the street. This is the original drawing here. So our recommendation is that it is our opinion that the project meets the intent of the zoning ordinance, the plan development standards, and the applicable master plans, in that it recommends that the Planning Commission approve the request with the following conditions: that the applicant shall comply with all required department comments and conditions, especially because there is a condition for the Parley's Canyon, Parley's Creek, that will need some buffering, but that would be finalized at the building permit time when they're getting the building permit. Second is to delegate the lighting to staff as a condition of approval, and that staff is giving the ability to make necessary modifications to the approved plans to meet technical requirements imposed by county flood control, and I explained that already why. And a fourth condition that we added, with this new revised plans is that Udot approves the vehicular access point and the design as part of the building permit process. And that's my presentation, and I would be happy to answer any questions at this point.
Thank you, Katja. Commissioners, any question for Katja? I'll just say, and Maureen, pipe in, I feel like one of the directions for UDOT was to just have them review it because they hadn't even reviewed it. Did you want them to formally approve it?
Well, because that's their process.
Yeah.
That they've looked at it, they conceptually agree with it, and it won't be finally approved until the project's approved.
So I felt like that was, yeah. Do you feel like it needs to be an actual condition?
It wouldn't hurt.
Okay, I just wondered. Any questions for Katja? Okay, thank you, Katja. We'll go ahead and bring the applicant up. We have Ryan, and I'm going to butcher your last name, I'll just not do it. And then you can come up and state it, and Mike Nickel. Thank you. Katja, do you have their presentation ready, or do you have one you need to plug in? Oh, you have a laptop. Okay. No, you're good. So please state your names for the record, and then you guys will have 10 minutes.
Mike Nichols, owner developer of the Coachman's project.
Wesley Goldberg, real estate agent, sales consultant.
Ryan Makoviak with AE Irbia Architects.
I would have not done that right.
You'd have been the first one to butcher that name.
Thank you. All right, go ahead, gentlemen.
Okay, I'd just like to start by thanking you, Madam Chairman, and also all of the commission here for taking the time to hear this again, because I do realize that it was tabled with some concerns, and I agree with those concerns. I do want to say that the original concept I thought was great. This one is much better. So we looked at the whole thing, put our thinking caps on, and we definitely have a better set of plans that addresses, I personally think, the commission's concerns. So we've broken up the building into two. The only reason we have a sky bridge there is to connect the condominium owners on the south side to direct parking that is on the second level. Other than that, I wouldn't even have to do that, but it didn't seem feasible to bring them down over and then back up one. So that's the one thing. We created two completely separate buildings with a 50-foot opening there. We eliminated the north entrance, and I think we made a really, really neat patio there. It's going to be an outdoor patio for either restaurants or food establishments that are inside that, renting in that building. So it could be like a food court type, or it can be specific to a restaurant, okay? It's going to have just wrought iron fencing to kind of delineate the areas and on both sides. But I think it'll be neat. It'll have 18-foot ceilings in there, and it's pretty much going to be one of the few patios that can be utilized most of the year, with rain or anything like that. It wouldn't affect you in there. Also, we reduced the unit count by 8. I eliminated all the studios. I listened to Andra there. She was right. There was no need for that, but it was like I said at the time, we felt we were only going to utilize those if we needed to absorb some areas there that we couldn't do anything with. We ended up, with my team here, doing a good job, and we ended up with 23 one-bedroom, 55 two-bedroom, and 16 three-bedroom. Basically on the corners, the three bedrooms are where they exist. We also did not eliminate any amenity space that was on the second level by doing this. It's still there. In fact, I even included a community garden on top of that one level there. Also, I just think this is in line with the vision of the area. I hope we address the commission's concerns, and I think it'll be a focal point for the community as well as a catalyst for development in that area. And I ask the commission's approval on this project so we can move forward. I would love to put this into action.
As far as the architecture goes and the design, we really try to do our best to take into account the feedback that we got back in December, which was that it's rather large. It reads as one long building. And so what we've really tried to do is pull the massing back on the upper levels. We had that prior, but we've pulled it back even further. We've changed the materials at those same sort of transition points, if you will, on the north building, which is one contiguous building we've done our best to do to make it feel and look as if it were two separate buildings. There's plenty of precedent, I think, in Salt Lake where property lines are built right to, materials change from use to use or from building to building, and so we've tried to mimic that here. And as the building reaches upward and pulls away from the sidewalk, it recesses back. The north building, the north third, I'm going to call it, of the north building, sets back 10 feet or so, and then as you get to the central portion of that north building, it pulls back even further, back to 30 to 34 feet, give or take. So we've really tried to eliminate or reduce the massing at that pedestrian level, make sure that the outdoor courtyard that Mike's just mentioned will be covered but accessible and usable throughout the year, and really make this a place that people can shop and dine and live and work, all of that, everything that this zone is designed to do. So we're excited to be here. Thank you for your time. I want to say real quick, I know your planning staff doesn't get enough time on the record for a little praise. I think Katya's done a really good job with this, and we appreciate her time.
From a sales perspective, this project is so unbelievably exciting.
You might
because
have to speak into the microphone a little bit more, just so I can hear
From
you.
a sale, can you hear me now?
Yeah, now I
Okay.
can.
From a sales perspective, this project is so unbelievably exciting because we are truly doing something that Salt Lake City has never seen before. For all intents and purposes, we're offering a high-end luxury condo product at an affordable price tag, rivaling the quality and elegance of City Creek, but not priced out of reach. These stunning modern craftsman condos with high-end Park City feel will offer open concept floor plans, 9 and 10-foot ceilings, 8-foot doors, quartz countertops, solid surface flooring, balconies, as well as extreme amenities such as hot tubs, fire pits, steam shower, sauna, multiple gathering areas with plenty of open space, and even a beanbag toss. I'm personally advocating for a putting green on the project. Honestly, I can go on and on about the features and amenities, but more importantly, this is a benefit to Salt Lake City in helping alleviate the pressure of the housing shortage, which is much more important to address. 80 to 90% of the housing units being constructed in Salt Lake City are rental units. According to Bankrate.com, as well as many other reputable sources, Utah has been ranked as the #1 housing market for the strongest pace of job growth, along with low unemployment and low local and state taxes. Utah's housing problem continues to be a supply and demand issue. But even with the rapidly rising interest rates, we don't see the market drastically slowing down because there is absolutely nothing out there to buy. The Wasatch Front in general has seen record-shattering price increases. Experts have warned of severe imbalances where demand continues to outpace supply. With Utah's rock-solid economy combined with millennials finally getting their lives together and moving out of their parents' basements, we believe that adding 94 for-sale housing products, especially at the reasonable price per square foot, which first-time homebuyers will be able to afford, will create some ease and hopefully a bit of breathing room to the current housing crisis in Salt Lake. I have absolutely no doubt that we will sell all of the units immediately. In fact, I'm trying to figure out a way to phase the project so I don't overwhelm myself with the amount of sales and interest we will be bombarded with upon the release. Obviously, the location is everything. With an unbelievable location, a mere steps away from tracks, public transportation, Smith's ball field, as well as the planned relocation of the LDS hospital to the new Sears building just a couple of blocks away, we plan to offer some lucrative partnerships and even potential discounts to organizations such as the Salt Lake Bees and LDS hospitals for employees and contractors. I am here to ensure that Mr. Nichols' vision in giving back to the community becomes a reality. He has a huge desire to repay Salt Lake City for the success that the location of the Coachman's Diner has brought to his family for over half a century. We believe that this condo complex will make a huge impact to regentrify the area of 13th South and State Street and immediately add to the modernization of Salt Lake City around the hospital and the ball field. The classy and ultimately relaxing atmosphere that this housing complex will create, combined with the security system and cameras that we'll be utilizing to keep the residents, guests, and personal property safe, will drastically change the ambience of all of their surroundings. The curb appeal of the building itself, combined with the added luxury retail shops on the ground level, will stop you dead in its tracks. Honestly, I'm honored to be a part of this team and create such a vision that Mike had. Thank you.
Is that it?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, all three of you. I appreciate you coming back, and I believe I said this back in December, that the commission, my feeling was that the commission was happy to see something go on here, and we do think this was a pretty important corner, as you do. So I appreciate you going back and addressing all of the kind of concerns we brought up, because we want to see this be something really special. Even beyond my lifetime, this corner will still be there. And so I appreciate the work you've done. And I initially, when I looked at it, thought this was a big improvement. And as I read it, I was pleased to see many parts of it. So I think you did a good job in addressing our concerns. But I will open it up to the commission for any questions to the applicant at this time. Okay, well, hang tight. We do have some public comment periods, or some public comments that I know. Once I close that, if there's anything that comes up during that time, I'll let you have the opportunity to address anything that's brought up during that. So if you just want to sit there, that would be great. Katja, could you bring up the new rendering, just so that we have that on the screen to look at as we go through this? Okay, I'm going to open the public comment period. First of all, is there anyone here from the community council for this area? Okay. With that, when I call your name, are you here from the community council? Pardon? Are you with the community council for this area that Coachman's is in? Okay, I'll call you in a second. So when I call you up, you'll head to the lectern. You'll have 2 minutes. I will time you and let you know when that time is up. If you would state your name for the record. This is a public comment period, so it's not a back and forth Q&A, but if you have questions, please feel free to pose them. I'll write them down, and I will ask staff or the applicant after the public comment period is closed. I just want you to know we won't stop your time to answer them at that point. So first up, I do have Rick Tanaka. Is that you? If you want to head up to the microphone and state your name, and then I'll give you 2 minutes.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Rick Tanaka. I'm an associate and friend of Mike Nichols, so I'm here to support him. If I don't support him, I think that our friendship may end. With that being said, I've listened carefully to the comments and remarks that have been made by this commission. And as you are well aware, Mike has tried to address all the issues that were raised. I'd like to point out that Mike has striven over the past 10 years to move this project forward. And what you may or may not know that it's not just a regular project. It's a heritage, a legacy project. He's trying, in part, to carry on the tradition and the connection that his family and the Coachman's restaurant has with this area and with this neighborhood. And his father, who came here some 6 years ago from Crete, with just $10 in his pocket, has built strong community connections to the Salt Lake City area. And he is trying to maintain that connection in the future. And he felt that this project, this particular project that addresses the housing needs of the area, is a way to keep connected to the project and to give back to the community, as well as build a legacy for his father. So it's a project that's very dear and very important to Mike. It's not just a building that he's putting up with glass and concrete. There's deep meaning and feeling to this particular project, and I want to stress that to this.
Thank you, Mr. Tanaka. I appreciate that. Next up, we have Cindy Cromer.
Hi, everybody. This is the FBUN2 zone. I call it a blank check for developers. Having received a blank check, the developer wanted even more, almost 3 times the length of a building allowed in the zone. We know what this looks like. Cottonwood Residential is finishing one such behemoth in the East Downtown. I call it the Salt Palace of residential structures and anticipate that will affect the weather in the neighborhood. At the Coachman's project, the north building will still be 135 feet longer than allowed. It will still read as one building, even with the new courtyard. So my question is, are there some offsets for a building that is frankly too long? Well, do we have a commitment for ownership opportunities? Maybe, probably, I think so, because developers don't cross that line between rentals and condos very often. What about larger units? Yes, I think we probably do have that commitment. What about a commitment to anything besides market rate housing? I'm not sure about that one. Is the project consistent with life on state, except for its length? Yes, generally, although it would be part of the neighborhood's character to save that historic sign, and we have an ordinance that would allow that. Thank you very much for insisting on more at this location. And I would add thanks to the developer for not arguing with you. This is an awful lot of compliance for a developer in this market, and much appreciated. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Cindy. Does anybody else wish to speak on this item? In the back first, sorry. Saw his hand first and then you.
Good evening.
Yes.
My name is Arlie Green. I work for Western Region Nonprofit Housing Corporation. We own the parcel directly to the east of this proposed development, the Edison Apartments. Mr. Nichols has been completely transparent with us throughout his process. The buildings that are currently there, I mean, the Coachman is definitely a historical value, but it would be a great benefit to this area to have this redeveloped. And what Mr. Nichols has proposed, and obviously what he's done in working with the council in providing what they're asking for, we 100% agree with what he's trying to do. The development that he's proposing is very much needed, not only in this area, but in the entire county. I know it is a large building, but that is what we need now. Western Region is a nonprofit that focuses in affordable housing, and what Mr. Nichols is trying to provide is an absolutely necessity product from our perspective, even as affordable housing providers. His for-sale condos, what he's proposing is going to be even a great transition product from our housing into a home ownership product. And so I came here this evening as a representative of the ownership of the adjacent property to say that we 100% support his development and what he's proposed here in his revised plans. So we ask that the commission view this favorably, and we hope that this does proceed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please.
My name's Eric London. I'm a real estate agent, and he basically took the words out of my mouth. I was just going to say to put affordable housing in downtown Salt Lake would just, I mean, anything that gets listed down there just is sold immediately. And so to have 94 units to sell would just alleviate some of that, the pain of those people trying to get houses under contract. So I just want to give them kudos for this project.
Thank you, Mr. London. Does anybody else wish to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public comment period. I'll bring it back to the commission.
Sorry, Madam Chair, we do have a public comment
Oh,
in the
yes,
zoning
thank
email,
you, Amy.
that I'll read. So this is from Jen Colby. She is she's indicated that these are personal comments. I thank the Planning Commission for tabling the Coachman's PUD in December. Overall, this proposal still highlights the inadequacies of the FBUN2 zone requirements. Please consider additional conditions before approving. On the positive side, at least this project is redeveloping a commercial site rather than tearing into the existing housing stock, especially the historic and naturally affordable housing left. There are some improvements to the last renderings. Adding more multi-bedroom apartments is a good reminder that simplistic unit counts are a poor metric for housing. Diversity matters. Unfortunately, despite the major rezoning valuation government giving to the property owners, there appear to be no affordable units. While more bedrooms may make it possible for some families to live here and schools are nearby, there are no appealing features for children. In the Netherlands, not confined just to parks, playgrounds, and everywhere in Amsterdam, making it easier for families to live in an urban environment. That's from a Not Just Bikes video. Worse, the complex is on the disastrously engineered US-style streetscape, an urban Stroud, a dangerous, value-eroding, high-speed street road hybrid which functions badly as both. See Strong Towns if you are not familiar with the term. Because it is controlled by Udot, this is unlikely to change. Design speeds are extremely high. The 6-lane design and infrequent crosswalks discourage walking. Buses are caught in traffic. State Street is a hostile death trap for children, pets, people with mobility issues, bicyclists, basically anyone outside a motor vehicle and sometimes in one. With this in mind, I contest the claim that locating the new building at or near the front property line helps to engage the sidewalk activity, providing visual interest and variation for pedestrians. As jazz great Gene Harris sings, but compared to what? Well, yes, versus front parking lots like current layout, but not compared to well-designed building frontages.
That's over time.
I can just add it to the Dropbox and include the rest in the record.
We have, per my request, instituted a guideline for comments that will be read into the record to be at 2 minutes at length to match public comments for fairness. So, I'm going to stick to that. But you can put them in the Dropbox for further review if they're lengthier than that. That way we can add some fairness. Okay, then I will again officially close the public comment period. If you want to address anything that Amy just read, I'll give you a few minutes to do so, but I don't know that you have any control over how State Street operates or anything like that. But go ahead.
I don't know that I can do much on some of that stuff. I mean, I think that we have that upper level enclosed area for kids that would be neat because you don't need to worry about them running out into the street. And this notion that everybody keeps saying it's right up against, I mean, there's 10 feet of hardscape and specified sidewalk between the curb and the building, and there's also 12 feet if you count the insets. That's not a small pedestrian walk. So I don't know why this keeps coming up. I think it's maybe something that wasn't articulated properly, but I mean, it's 10 feet with some trees with the grids around them. I mean, I see this downtown all the time, and I see people walking on both sides, not just on one side. So I don't know, exactly where this keeps coming up.
That's fine. Thank you. So, commissioners, I'm open this up for a discussion or questions for the applicant or staff. I will just take a stab at the question of the 135-foot length that we see here. I normally really dislike really long buildings. And that was one of the main problems we had with the previous design. I don't so much look at it as trade-offs the way somebody brought up that if we get something here, will I allow it here? But what I've always felt like the intent of that building length was to break it up so it didn't feel so massive at the pedestrian level. And I think, and I have seen a few, and this would be one of them, where the design, the functionality accomplishes that even though it is lengthy. And so I personally then look at, is the intent of that length limit being met with your design? And I think in this case now, this new one is. Oftentimes the length is just too much and the design is just not good enough to break it up visually. But we can have a discussion or questions or a motion.
Who wants to go
Andra,
first?
you go first.
I just want to address Jen's comments, Jen Colby's comments. Thanks for that. I think all of us think State Street is fast and we need some fast streets, but there are far too many fast, wide streets in Salt Lake, but I don't think that's the purview of this commission to address. On the affordability issue, I guess my thought is that it's through filtering, and there's greater substitution for if you have some kind of larger units. Maybe you don't put a family with, a 3 and a 5-year-old in there, but you put a couple who has a live-in parent or something in there, and they're not encroaching on the larger homes. I live in a 3,000 square foot home. My two cats and I live in a 3,000 square foot home because there was nothing to buy when I moved to Salt Lake. There was literally nothing that was appropriate housing in the owner occupied market. And so that's like, I have encroached on family housing because there was not supply. And I think we just need to keep in mind that the substitution is along the filtering dimension. So thanks.
Thank you, Andra. And while I think affordability is on everyone's mind, and it is an important topic to all of us here, it does not fall under the purview of the standards. And so ultimately, when we evaluate projects, the presence or lack of affordability is not something we can articulate into voting, but I think we appreciate and view positively the effort to provide a better mix, because we don't see enough. And I also do believe that one of the studies that was indicated that when developers come and say, oh, we've been looking at the numbers and we need studios, you and I are part of that problem because we live alone. I don't live in a 3,000 square foot house, but we contribute to that number, but we don't live in studios. So I think we know we need more of what you're offering, is what I'm trying to say. So who over here? John, please.
Yeah, that was me. I do have a discussion item. I appreciate the passion of the project. I appreciate the update to the square footage and kind of creating these larger units that are going to help some families. My concerns are more, and I feel like we overcorrected a little bit. I think the building massing is close. I think that the overall kind of programming of the building is good. My issues are that the building distinctly kind of starts to read as 3 separate buildings, and I think that's really good. I think where we tried to make it mimic kind of old-timey free-form construction where buildings got built right next to each other, that always misses the mark for me because it's fake and it's not really working with the massing of the building. So the portion all the way to the right kind of feels that way, like it's being forced a little bit too much. I mean, I would be okay with it being less change in material. And I think it goes kind of crazy on the left side where we really start to change the material. I'm looking at the old renderings that are still in our packet, and those just feel a lot cleaner to me. And when we look at the ground floor of the two versions next to each other, the ground floor was actually broken up more in the original design than they are now. Now it's just a glass storefront that runs the full length of the building. It's just very generic and kind of unintentional. I think what you had before was actually breaking that street facade up. And that's one of the things we look at most as commissioners is how does a person interact with these buildings? What is the wayfinding? How do you kind of navigate the street? And I feel like it's actually moved backwards from that point. And if we could just make the left side of the building, basically where the yellow marker is, closer to what it was before. I mean, it was simpler, it was cleaner, the detailing was much more appropriate. Now just all this yellow and the changing of materials, the L-shaped patterns that are in plane changes just start to add too much, if that makes sense. That's my discussion kind of item. I'd like to know what everyone else feels about the engagement of the street and how those storefronts feel.
I personally feel like they're better, but that is what we do. I mean, we don't all always agree on things
Well,
either.
and I'm not sure that these issues of design are actually part of our purview at this moment. I don't think, but I happen to agree with John that the first
I know the
rendering.
two architects are agreeing. They gang up on the rest of us.
I agree that the simplicity of materials in the first one and the expression of materials in the first one is better. I don't know that we can say you must do it this way, but I think it's something to look at in terms of how you go forward. I also think the color is better, at least the way it's rendered in the original. It's not yellow, and that's kind of giving me a little heartburn. And I really like the sort of brownie or golder tones that you had, more of a brickish tone. And again, I don't think these things of color I know they're not part of what we do here, but it's just something to go back and look at the way that's been articulated before and how it actually kind of worked better.
And that's really all I'm asking. It's not that this is a requirement. It's just that I think you had a better project in certain instances before, and I think if you met somewhere in the middle, it would be a more successful overall.
Yeah, and this is part of our purview of building facade materials, the pedestrian engagement.
It's about scale too and accessibility to the pedestrian.
It is part of the standards.
Commissioners, if I could just interrupt.
Yes.
Unless there's a condition that would allow staff to review those changes, all changes have to come back to Planning Commission. So if we approve this design, which I'm saying is fine, we just want to make sure you carefully articulate that condition that would allow staff certain ability to approve certain modifications.
And that's why I brought it up for conversation, because if it were to happen, it would be delegated to staff. But I just wanted to get everyone else's thoughts on this before we push forward.
Yeah, there are often times we express our thoughts and like for the applicant to hear them and maybe consider them. And then there are other times when we feel really strongly about it, to the success of the project, that we would talk about it being a condition. I don't be the only one who speaks. If somebody else wanted to speak to that discussion item John brought up.
I would like it to be a condition that if they choose to review their design, that can be approved at the staff level. That's,
Can I make a comment?
Oh, no,
Is that okay?
We're
You're
at
still-
we're at our discussion period. Sorry.
So the other thing is I want to congratulate you. I think this is as you said, and as often happens when you go back to the drawing board, it's a better project. And we all appreciate the efforts that you made. And I'm going to be in line to sign up for a condo, so.
I'll put your name on our list.
Any other discussion items from commissioners? Otherwise, I'm open.
I'd
for
like
vote.
to
Go ahead.
second Ms. Cromer's motion that the existing sign be reused in the new building. She didn't make a motion, but I love that sign. I love the idea of using that stuff. I think this project it looks a lot better now, and I think you met the things that we talked about, you paid attention to, so.
And that sign's part of that legacy.
I know.
We love the sign.
So if you can figure out a way to put it in there.
You can ask my architect how many times we keep looking at how to utilize it there, so it's not off the table.
You can figure it out.
It's not off the table. And it is, there is an ordinance to allow for those historic signs to be reincorporated, so keep at it.
Good luck.
Absolutely.
I think the public and the commission would like you to keep at it, so
Yeah.
that's good that's not off the table. Go ahead.
Can I make a motion?
Yes, you may.
Okay, thank you. Based on the findings and analysis in the staff report, testimony, and discussion at the public hearing, I move that the Planning Commission vote to approve the plan development application for the mixed-use, Coachman mixed-use located at approximately 1301 South State Street, file PLN PCM 2021-00898, with the following conditions that are in the staff report, with an additional condition that the design team look at the original facade materials and articulation, and proceed with a closer rendition in that regard, and that approval of any of those changes be delegated to staff.
I'd second that.
Okay, I'm curious on that, how that condition is worded. Is it directing them to absolutely go back to the first thing, or to just review it and then come up with, what they're like, no, we want to do this?
Yeah, just review it.
Okay, so.
Yeah, that seems pretty specific, that last condition.
Yeah, so I wanted to clarify. So it is to review with staff based on the first materials and ground floor articulation for that area,
Right.
but that then they are not tied into having to mirror that. They can decide what they want to proceed with, is what I'm getting at. Okay. All right, it's clear to me. So I have a motion from Brenda and a second from John. Any further discussion to that motion? Okay, I'm going to take a vote. Andra?
Yes.
Brenda?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
And Rick?
Yes.
All right, that motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, and sincerely, thank you for coming back.
Thank you so
with
much
a
for
much
taking
better
the time.
project.
And the only comment I wanted to make is that me and Ryan discussed that in advance, and we felt the same as you. So it's more than likely going to go back to that original. Okay, so I was just going to say that's not a concern of mine, because
That's
we
good.
had the same.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Good luck, and I look forward to seeing this happen.
I can't wait, and thank you all again, especially you, Madam Chairman, but all of you and the staff.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, seeing no further business tonight, I will adjourn this meeting, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.